The attorney for the Michael Brown family speaking out late last night after a grand jury decided not to indict Officer Darren Wilson.
It's always a travesty when our judicial system fails to respond to a very horrific situation like what we saw here today.
But did they fail? But as riots, looting, and violence rage on, is it time to put aside the disagreements and respect the rule of law? Joining us right now is Fox News legal analyst Peter Johnson Jr. Peter.
Good morning.
I guess I know the answer to that as a man of the law.
Yeah.
You say respect the grand jury decision.
I think all Americans agree with that. We have to have confidence in the rule of law. You can disagree with the grand jury determination. You can parse it out. You can go on the internet and find the evidence. You can say, well, this witness said this. The 59 other witnesses said that. There should be an indictment. There shouldn't be an indictment. But at the end, we have to pull together as Americans and say, this is the best system in the world, and we need to respect it. And so now we're going to have, unfortunately, flames fueled. Al Sharpton is already fanning those flames. Other people who are acting in disrespectful and really not patriotic ways are going to cause problems.
Sure, Eric Holder really getting into it now. I mean, he has two opportunities here for the Justice Department to pursue criminal charges. This is what it has to say here. An investigation in the Missouri City Police will force this. The department will continue to work with the law enforcement, civil rights, faith, and community leaders across the country to foster effective relationships between law enforcement and communities.
I tell you what, let's go out to the St. Louis and Ferguson area right now. We're at a press conference with the Chief of Police of St. Louis County and the Mayor of St. Louis.
It's unacceptable. It's wrong. The vast majority of people living in our region condemn it as well. And I think the unfortunate part about it is what that violence does is it not only puts a black eye on our community, but it really sets back the cause of social justice. Violence doesn't solve anything, and if we're going to have real change in this community, it's going to take all of us working together and not committing violence. What happened in St. Louis City, largely peaceful protesting, but there was some violence as well. As you can see, walking up and down the street, a number of windows were broken. We had about 21 windows broken here in South Grand, about 7 windows broken in other places in the city of St. Louis. There were 21 arrests, 6 city violations, as well as about 15 felony violations. The chief's going to talk a little bit more about that. I will tell you that here on Grand Avenue, this is a very good community of a lot of people who care deeply about our city, who are investing in their community. They are working hard to really bring back this area of the city. They don't deserve it. People of our community do not deserve even this kind of violence that occurred in the city of St. Louis. I will tell you that we're going to be prepared for this evening as well, and I'll turn it over to the chief to let him give his thoughts about what happened, what we're planning on doing as we go forward.
Thank you. Good morning. As the mayor said last night, I couldn't have been more proud of the police officers that responded to this. They were able to address the issues that were presented to them. We worked well with the organized groups to facilitate their marches up and down Grand, but at some point, individuals, criminals, began to break windows along this corridor, began to act in a way that none of us really like to see in our city, none of us want to see in our city. And at that point, we gave an order to disperse. We asked the individuals to leave the area. Many of them did, but those that didn't continued to break windows along this corridor. Again, as the mayor said, 21 windows smashed. We had felony arrests for unlawful use of a weapon, possession of firearms, so protesters brought guns to the environment. Again, I couldn't be more proud of the officers. The plan that we had with the National Guard to deploy them throughout the city at about 45 locations, I believe did have a positive impact. We did see bands of individuals roaming throughout the city looking for opportunities to commit crime, and at every turn they encountered police officers or members of the National Guard. And so I was very pleased with the way that plan worked. So as we move forward, we're going to continue to see the presence of the police department at organized events, just as we have seen. But you're going to see more of them. And very early on, because we know what's capable of happening in these crowds now, very early on, you will see an intervention when we see criminal activity. We do not tolerate criminal activity. We do not tolerate window smashings, looting, crime associated with these. So while we support everybody's right to come out and have their voices heard, you will see a large police presence, and when crime starts, you'll see us an intervention much more quickly than we did last night.
Were you disappointed the rules of conduct didn't hold better?
Well, here's what I will tell you. First of all, I'm disappointed in any and all of the violence that occurred. And as the chief says, we don't tolerate violence. The people that were committing violence, the people who are looting, the people who are smashing windows, that's not protesting. That's criminal conduct. And it's even more than disappointed. I'm more than disappointed. I'm outraged by it, and it's something we're not, as the chief says, we are not going to tolerate. I'll also say this. I will also echo what the chief said about the men and women of the St. Louis Police Department. I'm very, very proud of them. They did a great job last night dealing with large crowds and a lot of activity going on at once at different locations. They were professional. They handled themselves with restraint. And again, we learned. We're learning as we go forward as well. We learned, since August 9th on how to do things better. But also, we learned, I think, last night some things we can do to help prepare us even better for the night as well. For tonight.
Chief, can you talk to us about the shutdown of I-44 and
Okay, we've been listening to a live press event. St. Louis County Police Chief and the Mayor of St. Louis talking about the violence last night. Peter Johnson Jr. continues with us, and Peter was talking about how it's important for the people of America to respect the rule of law, which was meted out.
And absolutely, I think at this point we need redemption, not rage. We need reconciliation, not revenge. We heard the Mayor and the Chief of Police talking about what's gone on in that area, and Brian and I were all talking about that. We've got buildings burning. We've got businesses looted and closed. How many arrests were there last night?
29 or 30.
I mean, in watching the live Fox News coverage, I saw 100 people breaking into the Ferguson Market, the liquor store. So are they meeting their burden in terms of enforcing the law? And are religious and civic leaders meeting their burden in ensuring that we act in a calm, respectful way? We may not like the decision, but this is the decision of the grand jury.
But, Peter, here's the mix.
Yeah.
The mix is, as we were discussing in the hallway, the cops were too tough last time. They gave the wrong message last time in August. So this time, they were maybe too passive. And in turn, the religious leaders, the President of the United States, no one could suppress that crowd.
Well, I always thought that was nonsense, that somehow a uniform provoked people to loot and to riot. It makes no logical sense.
That's an excuse.
Well, we saw the president asking people for calm, and at the same time, these riots were continuing, so that message was not effective.
Well, it also shows that the message has not gotten through in 6 years with Mr. Holder and Mr. Obama, and people don't believe that racial problems have been improved in this country. But the greater issue is, are we going to act like Americans? Americans respect the rule of law. This is not some eighth world country. When a determination comes down, 60 witnesses, 25 days of testimony, all of it available on the internet.
Yeah, you were saying you can go read all of it.
You can go read all of it now.
Yeah.
Now, we can talk about it, we can discuss it, but in the end, it's not about burning down buildings or hurting people or threatening or even lawsuits. We have to understand what the stakes are and what the true stakeholders are, and that's us.
And you were talking about religious leaders. Also, he's a religious leader, but he's also a TV rabble-rouser. Al Sharpton is going back to Ferguson later on today.
Well, I think he's made some statements already last night about what he says should go on. Do we have that shot in terms of what he says?
We do.
I think people should see what he said.
We said from the beginning that we had little or no confidence in this local prosecutor. We can lose a round, but the fight is not over.
It doesn't sound like he respects the rule of law.
What's the fight?
The federal it's going to be a federal.
Well, the Justice Department has two opportunities, right?
Is the fight in terms of lawyers' fees? Is the fight in terms of what's going to be achieved in a civil rights lawsuit in a federal courtroom? What is the fight? Obviously, there are a lot of folks in this country who have no confidence in trust in the police. That's the fight. That's the fight. Education. Police need to do a better job, but communities and community leaders need to do the very best job to ensure that there's no violence going forward.
All right.
It does a disservice to everyone in this country.
Talk about civic duty. Peter Johnson Jr.
Good morning.
Thank you.